All right, this is the final statistics project for Daniel Lenz, Alex Clear, and Isabel Avery. So we decided to do our project on the question of, is there a relationship between how a player performs at the NFL Combine and their starting salary? So for those of you that aren't acquainted with what the NFL Combine is, it's an event where the most promising athletes from college football uh, uh, perform these various events like the 40-yard dash or a vertical jump, or see how many repetitions of 225 pounds they can do on the bench press. And then all of these different scores are used to evaluate them when they are drafted and put into different teams. So I and the rest of my team thought that this was a poor way of measuring one's athleticism, that you can't really capture the value of a player in a couple different athletic tests, and that there's so much more that goes into a good player than that. So we decided to see if there was a relationship between these scores and their starting salary, with the idea that the starting salary is a good indicator of how valuable the player is. So we looked into this before we began the project, and this particular source that we have on the screen said that they did find a correlation between success and these high combine scores. But we went ahead anyway to try to prove that wrong. And we collected data from the NFL website of all the 2013 players and that were in the NFL Combine. And there were 293 of them. And we decided to select a random sample of 50. And so basically we just uh, put, we did 50 random numbers from 1 to 293 and made sure we got rid of any repeats. And yeah, and then we were able to use this website at the bottom, Spot Rack, or however you'd say it, for salary information. And that showed the salaries that these people had. So to try to answer our question, we did two tests. We did least squares regression line to see if we could, fit a line to this data. And then we also did the two sample t-test. And I'll go into more detail about that later. All right, so with this, we decided to have our null hypothesis be that there's no relationship between the results and salary, and our alternate hypothesis was that there's a linear positive relationship between the two. And we decided to use the composite score of the NFL Combine results, which is, as you'd guess, a composite score. It's kind of the summary of all of their scores, and compare that to their salary in the thousands. So at first we did a linear fitted line, and you can see that our R squared value was not very high, only at 47%, and it's just visible that the line is really not fitting the data well. So we decided to make some changes, and we did log 10 salary instead, and that gave us the curved line that we were looking for, and our R squared value was 62%, which is much better. And then at the bottom of the screen, you can see the exact data that it spit out and the equation, which is 1.699 plus 0.01719 times the composite score is the log 10 of salary. So then we also did our two sample t-test, and we decided to break the players up into two groups. So players who scored between 50 and 75, and 76 and 100. And the idea was that if there isn't any difference between, if there is no effect of the composite score on their salary, then we should be seeing the same mean salaries between these two groups. And so what we ended up finding was that they're really the p-value was really low. So basically we were wrong. um, since the p-value was 0.0025 and that was below our significance level that we assigned of 0.05, we did have significant evidence to reject the null. And so in other words, we had significant evidence to suggest that the mean salary of players who got between 50 and 75 is not equal to the mean salary of players who got 76 to 100. So between the two tests, we basically found that we were completely wrong. And this equation was basically the best that we could find to predict the scores based on composite scores. Though that still was not perfect. So we did realize that this wasn't the perfect testing of the relationship. When we were writing down the data for salaries, we found that some of the really good players would have these ridiculous starting bonuses of like millions of dollars, maybe like $5 million. And we had trouble putting that into our data because we were recording the salary. And the starting bonus, we couldn't really figure out how to put that in there, so we just left it out completely. Yeah, so that was kind of an issue. And then there's all these other variables that affect how much your starting salary is. And yeah, so if someone was interested in pursuing this topic more, I think it would be really cool to see if the individual results of the combined tests have any indication of how well a player will do. So for example, maybe the 40-yard dash is a great way to measure how well someone's going to do in the NFL, and the vertical jump has no correlation. So that could be interesting to look into. The data's out there, but it was kind of out of the scope of the project. It was just a little too much work, and we didn't have time. And then lastly, this was just an issue to begin with, is we were interested in seeing how the NFL Combine could indicate the success of a player. And so we chose the salary as being an indicator of success, but really that isn't the best way to measure success. And really there isn't a good way to measure success. So maybe in the future someone could try to factor in how many championships their team wins, or how many yards they run, stuff like that. And so that would be a really interesting way to continue this study. So I hope you guys found this project as interesting as we did. It was a great way to do stats and still spend a lot of time on the NFL website. So hope this has made you think a little more about football and statistics. All right, thanks.